I think we're going to start with Mihingarangi Forbes and her interview with David Seymour at Waitangi. Now, I've got a clip that's about 3.5 minutes, a clip that's about 3.5 minutes, and a clip that's about 3 minutes. So we're going to get some big chunks. And Chewie, you can Sam C to this thing and shout out or pause the thing there if you want me to pause it. But let's have a listen to this conversation. The first part of the conversation is speaking specifically about the treaty referendum bill.
The bill, everyone's been talking about the Treaty Principles Bill. How far have you got with drafting it, and any more insight into what it might look like or sound like?
Well, I think you've seen from the Policy Act released a long time ago that we have an idea that the principles should be based on the actual tiriti itself. It should talk about the government having the right to govern.
I think, I didn't quite understand the pronunciation. He said the tiriti. I think he got mixed up between, no, I'm not mocking him, but I think he got mixed up between saying tiriti and treaty, because he said the tiriti. So I think that's all that was, if anyone else picked up on it.
I know there's people that say Ngāpuhi didn't cede sovereignty. What they don't explain is how the world is actually going to work when you have two legal systems, two justice systems in very close proximity to each other. The answer is it can't. Number two, that we have tiroranga tiratanga. Now, I know there's people who say when they said for New Zealanders, everyone thought that was Māori, being the New Zealand people of that time. But I think as people...
Which is pretty clear that's what it was. I mean, they weren't signing something in 1840 to say, the influx of Norwegian tourists or residents to come here in the year 2100. I mean, who else is it talking about? It is the people of the time. And this is one of the things, another part of the conversation, I didn't actually load it up. I did, but we couldn't have everything. He talked about ACT being the party that kind of demonstrates Tino Rangi better than anybody else, because he has a definition for it, talking about property sales and self-determination and this kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, Chewie, if it's not Māori who they're talking about in 1840, who were the signatories to the treaty and Crown, then who the fuck is it? Like, is there any treaty you write today that in 150 years from now is going to be, it includes all those people as well? Of course it does. All those people, they're included. Well, it's nonsense. I think it's just so easy to poke holes in his conversation. I don't know why people fall for it. Probably because they want to fall for it, Chewie, and they have a perspective in mind.
Absolutely. He's talking to his audience and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
He's not talking to anybody that knows the history. And you're right. It's like there's a reason why the US Constitution has amendments, right?
Yeah.
Because they come up with an idea and they write it in. And that makes their constitution somewhat a living document. But we don't have that. And I'm not suggesting that we do.
Well, why not? I can't even think of anything.
I honestly don't know the answer to that question.
Has that conversation ever happened though?
Not
amendments to the treaty to reflect better 20. Just thinking.
The treaty is not a constitution, though. A constitution is a guiding document, right?
Right, yeah.
They all wrote down. They go, right, this is what's going to be important to our country. And first of all, we got to own people. Whereas a treaty is not that. It's not it's a founding document. It's not a guiding one.
Right. Yeah,
so I don't think you could put an amendment in it, even if you wanted to, which is why I think this is why ACT is putting so much focus on reframing it.
Yeah.
If you take them at their word, if you dig into it a bit, like many are at the moment, I think it is just a way to sow even more division and drive a bigger wedge between the Indigenous population of this country and the non-Indigenous population of this country, because that always fucking works. It's worked for them in this election, and hopefully it'll work for them in the next one. I'm sure that's what they think.
All right, we'll keep going. Here we go. Well, where's my little mouse gone? There it is. Oh, there it is, yeah. Found it.
On aeroplanes into Auckland Airport, even this morning. We need
hang
to
on,
ask, should
hang
that
on, hang on.
include everybody?
Settlers had nothing. Settlers had nothing. This was an arrangement, a treaty, a property contract, if you like, between the Crown on behalf of settlers and rangatira Māori. So to then assume that settlers, the ones that arrived on a plane not that long ago, have rangatiratanga, it just doesn't work when you read the words of the treaty.
Well, first of all, it certainly wasn't a property contract, that's for sure. It was a political compact.
Article 2 is a contract about property and rights and fisheries and land and rivers.
It was a political compact that, among other things, said that your property rights would be upheld. That's totally different from a property contract. I think we've just got to be clear on these things. But on the other hand, here's my question. If you believe that the treaty in Article 2 did not extend te rangatiratanga to all people who live in these lands, then you've got to explain how you're going to have a functioning state with a different political status for different people. And I don't think...
I've never heard him explain what that means. Like, he keeps saying there will be different rules and a different status. I've never actually heard him explain. Can you compartmentalize that for me? Can you explain what that means? How does the treaty in its current form give different people different status? Like, I've never heard that pushback from anybody. And I'd like to ask him. I've made the decision. I mean, I don't think they'll come on, but I'm going to send him an email this week to see if he'll come and have a chat with us, because I've never heard him go to, okay, what does that mean? You know, this is a great thing in interviewing. It's a kind of a theatre sports game. And then what? And then what? And then what? So what do you mean? Demonstrate to me right now that the current way we do things, some people have a different kind of political status, level, whatever word he used in, than others. And because I've never heard it be unpacked any further than just a bumper sticker, Chewie.
It's really playing into, like, I mean, do you even call it a racist dog whistle anymore? It's a fucking foghorn at this point. It's playing into this thing that Māori are privileged. They have more rights than you do. They get to go to university more, and they get all of this money from the government. And Māori are obviously getting it over on you. I think that I hate it. Yeah. I thought we had put this to bed. I thought we were seeing the benefits of everything that we've done in the last 40 years. And he wants to unwind it all. He wants the white people that he's talking to see the enemy as Māori. And it's just, what is the, like, if you take him at his word, it's bad. Yeah. If you go further than that, it's even worse. Like, I just can't ignore the noise around David Seymour and ACT and Atlas and what Atlas have done in other countries with other issues around Indigenous rights in a colonial setting, in a colonial government setting. They did it in Canada, where David has spent some time. They did it in Australia with The Voice, and now they're fucking with us.
And I'll say this, I've said this before, this is just an opinion. I don't have any evidence for this yet, but I'm looking around. I wouldn't be surprised if Atlas is doing, back in the 80s and stuff, New Zealand used to be pretty much the first to get a bunch of technology. Like, we were the first to use FPOS in the world because we're a very good testing market, because we're we have no countries on our borders. We're a particular size that's big enough to be able to test things out. So for a long time, we were like the testing pot for the rest of the world. And I get the sense, at least, that the Atlas money that's coming into the country at the moment, funding various outlets and helping various outlets, is very much a testing ground for what's happening in America in November of this year. Yeah. Testing the messaging, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work.
We'll see later on in this interview, but just how defensive he gets when Atlas is brought up.
Yeah.
Like, instantly the walls go up.
Yeah. I'm not
but
going
I think everybody should be worried about foreign interference in our country. And, right from the ground up, it seems that this is what ACT has been here to do.
When it comes to Atlas, I'm not sure whether it was Macbeth. Anyway, Shakespeare said, methinks the lady doth protesteth too much. And that's normally, we take that in the modern context to go, you're reacting pretty badly to this, sir or madam. Why are you reacting so badly to this? Why are you pushing back so hard? Do we need to know more? Certainly the vibe. Let's get to the end of this clip, shall we?
There's a good example of that. There's lots of disastrous examples, but I don't think there's a good example of that anywhere in the world. I think a much more practical reading
There are
of the treaty
treaties all
and a
over the
legitimate
world.
reading.
There are treaties all over the world where one country gets some set of rules and then another country get another set of rules. They're just different privileges and they've been signed up in a treaty. So there's absolutely
not within a nation state. You're being highly misleading.
So
Give me an example.
it's a treaty, so it's a group.
No,
There's two partners in the treaty. One's the Crown, right?
Yeah,
and the other one, a rangatira. So
there's nowhere else in the world where a society functions successfully having two standards of citizenship. You go to Malaysia, you go to...
I guess he's being truthful. You think about America when it comes to money, those with money and those without money, doesn't work, does it? The top 1% and the let's say the way they use the justice system versus everybody else. And so I'm sure the next thing after David Seymour's done with this, he's going to be off on the let's make sure everyone's treated same no matter what money they've got or not got. I think that'll be the next part, won't it, Chewie?
Yeah, no war but class war, right? If he wants to talk about people with different rights and duties and different privileges and that sort of thing, surely he's talking about rich and poor.
Yeah,
that's something that everybody can get behind, right?
Yeah.
Is that what he's doing, Pat?
Don't think so.
Is it?
I don't think so.
No, he's
so.
underwritten by some of the richest families in New Zealand.
Maybe.
Right.
All right.
Gotcha.
All right.
South Africa, you ask people who've tried this. In a nation state, you have citizenship, you have a set of rights as a citizen. I call them human rights. And they have to...
I call them human rights. You may not know that term, but I call them. Does that sound Trumpian? I like to call it human rights. Like, honestly,
big brain.
And honestly, when it comes to the Atlas Network, he goes, here we go. Exactly what Trump does when he gets a question he doesn't like. Exactly. I call them human rights. They indicted me.
To be equal for all people by virtue of being human.
they're not two standards of citizenship. It's just Māori get to retain the contract that they signed with the Crown at the time. So, you keep talking about two races, but it's actually the Crown and ngā rangatira Māori, and it's not. It's as Annette Sykes says, isn't it? That she said it's different rights rather than special rights.
Oh, different rights. Okay, that's a nonsense. You either have the same rights or you don't.
And that point, David Seymour just echoes exactly the thing we've always talked about when it comes to David Seymour. I wrote it out as a quote. You either have the same rights or you don't. So what he's telling the country, if not the world, is that we should all have the same rights. But what he's putting into legislation is only to make the category of race have the same rights. Like, okay, cool. Let's go with that, right? That you either have the same rights or you don't. We're going to do that with age from now on. No more under 13s rugby. Can't, we've got to be treated the same when it comes to that. Are we going to do the same for religion? Catholic Church, no more male priests. Sorry, mate, you can't stop that. Are we going to do that for sex? That's a big one for him. Are they going to do that for disability? None of those special car parks anymore for people who are disabled. So he doesn't want to have the same rights or you don't. He wants to dog whistle to his voters, his supporters, and say, we can squash these brown people and make it better for us. That's what he's saying. I almost want to be generous and say whether he realizes it or not, but I think I've gone past that. That's what he's saying. Because he doesn't want everyone to have the same rights. He just wants everyone to have an appearance of the same rights when it comes to race, Chewie.
I just want to jump on the thing, it's human rights. You might have heard of it from David Seymour.
I don't think he quite said he might have heard of it. He said, I call it human rights. I call it human
Definitely
rights.
Implied.
Yeah, okay.
Considering David Seymour wants to get rid of the Human Rights Commissioner,
Yeah.
that's elephant tears to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, let's keep going on it, shall we? I want to put up a couple of things. The first is now in January of this year, there'll be a date there somewhere, won't there? I can't even see where. There we go. January the 30th of this year, I put out this tweet. If people were wondering if the Atlas Network is connected to ACT, this is from a 2021 speech that David Seymour made. It says this, quote, then the Global Index of Economic Mentality was released in November, quote, by my old friends at the Atlas Network, end quote. Atlas is an umbrella organization for free market think tanks all over the world. So that is from a speech from David Seymour in 2021. So we know he knows who they are. The question is, are they involved with them now? And this is the point, I guess, Chewie, where methinks the lady doth protesteth too much. So they're talking about the voice, and they're talking about interference in the messaging from the voice coming specifically from the Atlas network. Let's say. And remember what I just said, when Trump gets asked a question he doesn't like, he literally does say, oh, here we go, to the reporter. Like, here it comes, word for word. So you are seeing someone, whether it's a learned behavior, a suggested behavior, or he's just literally turning into it, who is not only looking at Trumpian type policy, but is beginning to speak Trumpian. So here's the story.
And those Indigenous Australians aligned with the Crown at the time. So, you know, you keep talking about two races, but it's actually the Crown and Ngā Rangatira Māori. And it's not, it's as Annette Sykes says, isn't it? That she said it's different,
So
different rights rather than special
Oh,
rights.
different rights, okay.
Oh, sorry, that's the wrong spot. We'll start that again. That was such a good build-up I gave it too. It's there.
And those Indigenous Australians are now warning Māori that the same groups are behind this referendum. Are they, do you think?
Well, if you're about to go into the new Pizzagate of the left conspiracy theory, then I'll be real disappointed.
What's that, the Pizzagate?
That's some crazy conspiracy theory that Trumpists have in the US.
The campaign in Australia had links to the Atlas Network, a
Oh, here we
network
go.
of think
Yep.
tanks
Oh.
which promote individual liberty
Shields
and
up.
free enterprise.
Shields up.
And it said that the network pushes opinion pieces in favour of free speech. Do the ACT Party have any links or connections to the Atlas group?
No.
Okay.
Oh, they
any
don't.
links- but any links or
Oh, they
connections?
don't.
Yeah. So they're his old friends, but this is where I guess you want to go one step deeper. What do you mean no connections? Maybe no funding, maybe funding for groups that support ACT. You know, so that never gets pushed harder,
Yeah.
but he says no, they don't. Yes, Chewie.
Would you consider that if the people that founded ACT, the New Zealand Party ACT, were the same people that founded the Atlas group?
Oh, interesting.
What if those people were the same people? Would
Yeah,
would
they'd-
that be links?
There'd be some.
Would they be
possibly.
links, Pat?
Yeah.
That
that'd be
would
linked.
probably we probably need to look at the Gibbs family then.
Right.
Former, I think they might even still be the chairperson of the ACT Party.
Okay.
We'll,
You wanna-
we'll circle back to this, I think.
We'll circle back to that. We'll keep going with the interview, talking about the Atlas Network, and yeah, I know people in the chat are already saying this as well. Just stop and think about David Seymour, who was talking about the disrespect paid to Nicole McKee at Waitangi, and he kind of mentioned, you know, to a female on the marae, and hear the tone that he speaks to this journalist with, this incredibly well-respected, award-winning journalist, respected by societies the world over.
Have you spoken or taken advice from them or any group associated with them about the
No.
treaty? So, you know, recently,
I can't believe you're doing this. I've read about this conspiracy theory and you're actually running it, but that's cool.
well, no, I'm just trying to understand it because we went to Australia and we
Picked up a conspiracy theory.
analysed the Yes campaign over there, and we spoke with Indigenous people about their fears about what would happen in the referendum. And so when you consider, you know, actually you and I spoke about it. You said that you had met Lord Hannon and then the TPU.
For people who don't know, Lorne Hannon was one of the sort of originators and he pushed really hard the Brexit situation. He was one of the guys at the early stages of Brexit and wanted to see the UK leave the EU. So just to anchor that for you.
The taxpayer union had invited you to come along, and he spoke about this treaty and the possibility of a referendum. So isn't that in fact, you know, these movements and these groups talking about our referendum?
What, going along to meet someone who's a famous figure in world politics.
What did he
And
come to New Zealand for?
I have no idea, but I was
Well,
really
you were
pleased.
there.
I was really pleased to have dinner with him.
What did he come to New Zealand for? I have no idea. He was at the speech explaining why he came to New Zealand, and his defence is, I have no idea.
I mean, he's,
Shields up,
he's
brain
world
off.
famous as a politician. You get to meet him, hear what
But
he's
you
got to
went
say.
along to that function to listen to him where he talked about the Magna Carta and the treaties And
oh my God, the Magna Carta.
he did. And
Scandalous.
well,
for
I'm not saying
fuck's
that
sake.
that's scandalous. I'm just saying this is what he
Yeah.
talked about. I listened to it online because it was posted by the TPU, and so he talked about that, and he talked about the danger of the misinterpretation of treaties and what they meant. And and he also says what you say is that the judiciary is getting too involved, or they're making the interpretation of it is too wide.
You do know that people have had concerns about judicial activism all over the world for all sorts of reasons for hundreds of years, right?
No, I
and
don't.
then you're trying to, and you're trying to say that this is somehow some crazy conspiracy theory. I mean, come on.
No, I'm just asking the question. I'm asking whether you know if there's any kind of connection. So you're answering there is
Well,
no connection?
I've told you.
Can you imagine if one of the leaders of the Greens or one of the, like, met up with, I don't know, one of the figureheads of Black Lives Matter or of, I don't know if there is a person, but like of Antifa or something. And the excuse that was given that they gave was, well, just meeting a famous person, and interesting to hear their thoughts. Can you imagine the kind of rhetoric that David Seymour would come out with? Now, was there anything untoward about that dinner? Well, we don't know. We can't say. We're not going to do it. But could you just imagine if it was the other way round? Would he be like, well, they can have dinner, that's fine. Or would he be like, yeah, crosses, burn the witch? Where would he be on this? I think we all know where he'd be on that. But, this is the hypocrisy within politics. It's that, one rule for thee and not for me. Which they pretty much all do, but the right seems particularly good at doing it, especially at the moment, Chewie. Is there something you want to drop in, or can we finish the last?
Oh,
this has only got 30 seconds.
Yeah, keep playing it. I'm
All right.
just getting pages and pages and pages.
Okay.
There's no connection there.
Cowboy.
I'm just disappointed in you for picking up a known conspiracy theory that several people have sent to me, and I never thought I'd get asked about it by you, but hey, you go.
Well, so my role is to ask questions on behalf of other people, and
also work out what's quality information, what's not. But anyway, you go.
well, Mata is
Wow.
a program that looks at things through an Indigenous lens, and so when we have discussions and talk to people
Well, I
in Australia,
don't think being Indigenous is an excuse for low quality debate. I mean, no.
What a piece of shit.
Yeah. Low quality debate.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So I'm not pausing. I'm not going right now. We do have one more clip to come out, and it's given me more of a understanding of who he is and why he's doing this. But also, there's a huge gap in his ideology. It's about, because we all know this, that ACT is about the individual rights versus like community rights. But what I've realized whilst watching this is a lot of this is now comes down to him talking about individual law, not kind of community law. But there's a massive gap in that conversation that he's also not picking up on, which I'll explain after the next clip. But you go, Chewie. I know you got stuff.
Oh, look, I was going to... Actually, maybe we should roll on, because it's kind of a big unpack.
All right. Well, let's get rolling.
We're going to... Yeah.
This is the last part of the conversation I'm going to play for you. And this is a conversation about the average being a way to group needs. Like when we're looking at research, when we do that kind of stuff, people talk about the average, the average Kiwi, the average Māori, whatever it is. And he has a really strange pushback. I should have counted them, but I think he probably repeats the word average about 20 times in this. That might be a bit too much. Like whilst Mihi is talking, he's going average, average, average. Yet that's when you're doing research amongst a group, whatever that group is. Let's talk about NBA basketball players. You do go, well, the average height is, or you go, the average salary is. And this seems to be the thing that I've learned about David Seymour and ACT, is whether he's using it in good faith or not, he is so determined to talk about the individual and not the average. That's the hang up where he can't say this is okay for Māori. There's a huge gap in that. We'll talk about it afterwards, but that's what this part of the conversation is about.
Yeah, well, can we just finish this point? Because you say average matters. Actually, what average does is it groups people together by race. It ignores the people who are of a different race but also have need. It ignores the people who are of your target race but actually doing very well. And that's why I say it's important that we start looking at people based on their need, based on their individual characteristics. You know, if you want to categorize people by race, if you think the most important characteristic of a person that you're going to do your averages by is race, then by definition, you're a racist. You're a person who thinks that race matters more than anything else. So it's actually an important point. Second issue, we have massive amounts of...
The other thing to understand is David Seymour doesn't know what a racist is. So that's the other thing to learn from this clip.
Need and disadvantage in education. I'm responsible for partnership schools, kura horua. We've talked about that extensively. I'm responsible for regulation. I believe that making it easier to build a home in this country is going to do more for
Look at
Māori
Mihi's
than
face.
anyone
You
else,
wait till you see what
because
she says
on
next.
average,
That's why her
it's
face is
Māori
looking
who are
shocked.
further behind in. We have massive amounts of need and disadvantage in education. I'm responsible for partnership schools, kura horua. We've talked about that extensively. I'm responsible for regulation. I believe that making it easier to build a home in this country is going to do more for Māori than anyone else, because on average it's Māori who are further behind in housing stats.
Coming back to when you referred to me as racist in health.
I didn't refer to you. I said anyone who believes that the first and best way to categorise human beings is by race, by definition, is putting race before other characteristics. Now,
Here's another thing for him to unpack. The first and best way. I've never heard anyone looking at stats say that this is the first way or the best way to group someone. It's a way. If you are researching Māori health needs, then you are, by definition, grouping Māori. And if you are looking at Māori health needs, by definition, there is going to be an average outcome. But this is this language that you use. If you say it's the first way and the best way, I don't think said nobody ever anywhere. But this is his response, right? That he's trying to sell the idea, whether he's just trying to, scare people more. He's trying to sell the idea that that what the government's trying to do and what the woke neckbeards are trying to do is saying the only way you can categorize people and the best way to do it and the first way is by race. That's the message he's putting out to his supporters. Ooh.
Beings is by race, by definition, is putting race before other characteristics.
Now,
I'm not saying that's you,
to be clear,
but
I didn't categorise.
Yeah.
I didn't. What I said. No, because what you have to do is that when you've got problems like rheumatic fever in your country, you have to work out how to deal with them.
Yeah,
you have to first find them. You have to measure the problem, and so by doing that, you group people. So when we look at the data, the scientific data for health, we can see that Māori children are overrepresented in some of those stats.
Yeah,
so again,
but there may be other reasons for that. It may be poor housing. It may be living in rural areas away from healthcare. So I'm saying is let's target the actual causes. Because if it's poor housing, you might find that there's Māori in good housing that don't have the problem, and there's non-Māori in bad housing that do have the problem, and we can design a policy to intervene and actually fix it rather than.
And again, you and I
both
know that it is Māori when we use the measurement again of scientific data. It is Māori again on average, whatever.
Yeah. Well, no, you haven't.
No.
Okay.
So again, no.
Yeah, sure.
Hang on. When we use the scientific data, we know that it is Māori that more than likely has poorer housing. So. What I'm asking is, where are the policies to start closing the gaps?
Well, first of all, saying scientific doesn't make you right. Second of...
Do you hear that? How's that as a pitch to his people?
Insufferable twat.
This has got 40 seconds, but did you get this? Saying scientific doesn't make you right. Does that evoke any memories back to a certain, Wellington lawn for a good 20-week period or 20-week period?
What I'm asking is, where are the policies to start closing the gaps?
Well, first of all, saying scientific doesn't make you right. Second of all, we talk extensively about our housing policy. We've got a huge amount of work that we need to do there. We need to make it easier to fund and finance infrastructure. We need to replace the Resource Management Act, use something that's based on property rights instead of the council. And this is what I would say is colonisation, the council making a plan for the whole district about what you can do. So, there's just two ideas, and then you get into building materials. It needs to be seriously deregulated. At the moment, we pay too much for building and materials. We don't innovate in the way I mean, this is easy. We talk about this stuff all the time. There's no question that we will make it easier to build homes, and if we don't, then it won't be for having good policies or trying very hard.
There we go. Now, I've got a few reflections on this, Chewie, but I've been hogging the limelight. Do you want to get to your bits and bobs?
I'm all for David Seymour deregulating building materials. Absolutely nothing can go wrong in a wet, changeable country that's prone to earthquakes. It's fine. It's probably going to be fine. Look, there's talk about Atlas. There's so much talk about Atlas, which is, of course, the Pizzagate of the left, apparently. Now, of course, just let's put a grounding on that. Pizzagate was a Trump conspiracy theory that somehow Hillary Clinton was running a pedophile ring out of the basement of a pizza shop in Washington, D.C.
Just for accuracy, I think probably more a QAnon than a Trump. I think it came through QAnon.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. But anyway, keep going.
That Venn diagram is a complete circle.
It's a circle,
yes. Good point. Okay, so that was completely unfounded, proven to be unfounded. That pizza shop didn't even have a fucking basement, right? And he is trying to equate that ludicrous, literal conspiracy theory with people pointing out, hey, do you have links with this very real organization overseas? And he goes, no.
That you've been connected to in the past, that there's photos of you being at the things that you've cited in your speech.
So there are levels and levels. Let's peel the onion, right? First things first, there are photos of David Seymour at an Atlas event in 2008. He also wrote an essay writing competition and got a trip to Tokyo. This is all mentioned in Atlas's websites and stuff like that. This is while he was working in Canada for an Atlas-based think tank that may have laid the groundwork for some very anti-Indigenous policies that were floated in the Canadian system, right? So that's one level, a fucking straight line pointing at David Seymour. Let's dig a little bit further. Let's look at one of New Zealand's richest families, the Gibbs family, and Alan Gibbs. Let's talk about Alan Gibbs. Why is he important? So, Alan Gibbs is a New Zealand-born businessman. So that's a good start, right? Alan made a shit ton of money when we deregulated, when the government started selling off assets. He made his money, a massive, fucking obscene pile of money, by buying telecom. Now, telecom started stacking up money all through the 80s by running on infrastructure that the government built and never innovating, locking it down until competition came in. He has been behind the founding of ACT and also the founding of a particular organization, the Centre for Independent Studies. The Centre for Independent Studies founded the Atlas Network, and his daughter, Dame Jenny Gibbs, is the current chairperson of the Atlas Network. So there's that. There's the very easy link to David Seymour. It goes right back to the founding of ACT. We should be concerned about this. It isn't a conspiracy theory. It isn't based on smoke and mirrors and mystery basements. It's fucking right there. It's documented. This is something we need to be concerned about. The Gibbs family have donated untold donations to ACT over the years. In the last round of public records of how much they donated, Jenny donated $155,000 on her own. Now, if we want to talk about all New Zealanders should be equal, maybe we should talk about that. Maybe we should talk about how much influence money gets you in this company, in this country, I should say. maybe we should be concerned. If that's what's on the record, 3 separate transactions of $50,000, you know, that's fine. What else? Is she giving money to other people to donate? Is David Seymour on the phone going, thank you very much, Dame Jenny. What would you like me to do today? You want me to spark off a race war as a distraction for other things? Okay, let's do that. Money needs to get out of our political system. If he wants to talk about the things that we can see overseas that don't work, it's money in our political system.
Yeah. Yeah. Preach. Preach.
The other nice little tidbit I like about Dame Jenny Gibbs is she is a prolific funder of the arts, but only art that she likes. So when this is a few years ago, but when she found out that an artist was, I think it had something to do with Nikki Hager after the Dirty Politics book came out, she pulled all of her funding.
Wow.
Because she didn't want anything to do with Nikki Hager. Now, of course, ACT, I assume Atlas, they're all about free speech, right?
Yep.
It's funny. There's links all over the place. All the people that we've been talking about. Atlas has links to ACT. Atlas has links to the Free Speech Union. It's funny how the Free Speech Union only brings over vile people. It's not equal. Like I see them bring over Graham Linehan. Because we need to hear from him.
Here's David Seymour at one of the events. There he is there.
Yeah.
This is the
literal
events.
Apparently he was writing a song about property rights, and I can only imagine what a fucking abortion that was. I think here in New Zealand we're kind of naive when it comes to our politics, right? Here we are, all the way tucked away down here. Nobody really knows what we need to, where we are, so we don't need to think about this thing. We think more about the Chinese influencing our political space than we think about US right wingers or our own right wingers with a big old pile of money. Yep. We talk about this a lot.
Yep.
I can't buy the level of influence that Dame Jenny can and her dad can. A family dynasty influencing our political landscape over the space of 40 fucking years.
Yeah.
How can I have that sort of influence? I can't. They can't.
Let me share to you as well my other revelation from this thing. Talking about, it's very clear, and I know if we said this out loud, we always knew this, that David Seymour an actor about individuality, not community, individual rights. That's why he kept going average. But what about the rich Māori who aren't average? Here's the little thought I had today. This is the party that wants to cut regulation. This is the party that wants less government spending. But at the same time they're saying that, they want everything to be means tested. In other words, they want to treat every single person in the health system as an individual. Because remember, he's not about averages, because what about those who aren't in the averages? Where do they fall to? What he's actually saying is, let's treat every single person as an individual within the health system and provide for the ones who need it. Look, you know what? I'm okay with that, but do you know what it means? Your bill, your payment for the health sector has just increased 50-fold. Because one of the reasons that we do averages is the same as anything, and it's not good nor bad, it's just the way it is. Some people fall through the gaps because of averages. It's not the best way to do it. If we literally went, let's talk about rheumatic fever, and went and found out what every single person needed and then targeted them, that would actually be great. But it would be hundreds of billions of dollars more to do it that way. Because what you'd find is the majority of those people getting that help for that rheumatic fever would be Māori, because that's what the average is. But it would cost so much more. And this is coming to you. He's never said it this way, but this is coming to you from a man who wants to have the government spend as little money as possible, whilst kind of pitching this idea that we should treat everyone as an individual. And if we treat everyone as an individual, then when it comes to big decisions, like in the health sector, like in roading, like whatever it is, we got to do a case study for every single individual. Because you know what, even my family, my kids have different needs from me. So you need a study on me, and then one on my two kids are at home, and one on my partner, and one on my boarder. You know, we're going to need to look at everyone like that. So when he says that the averages aren't the best way to do it because it ignores the people who aren't in the average, that's true. I don't want to ignore those people. So now what Mr. Seymour has to do is come out and say how much more he's going to spend on health to be able to provide a bespoke outcome for every individual in New Zealand that needs it. So where's that money coming from? Or, Chewie, is it all smoke and daggers? Is it the shell game? And is it a good soundbite to get through to, as you keep saying, the ratepayers union members to get their vote?